Welcome to another episode of Fed Ninjas. And Bertie Green is back with us. It's been a while, Bertie. How's 2025 been?
2025 has been fantastic. I've missed you guys, and sorry I haven't been doing as many episodes. We moved, I started a new job. It's a lot of stuff at once, but really glad to talk to y'all again.
Well,
Yeah, good to
that's
see you again,
just
Bertie.
fine, man, because we've been on hiatus a little bit too. So it's time to get things going again. And
Love it.
just in the pre-show, we were talking about a couple of things: network segmentation, account management, AI security. Do we consume or do we create? Anything else I'm missing there, Eric?
No, yeah, I'm excited to hear this from Bertie because he sees this every day. And so it's interesting to see what customer perspectives are, especially in the realm of cybersecurity and understanding privacy and things that you really shouldn't be seeing because they might be confidential. So I'm really excited to hear that from Bertie.
Perfect. Well, Bertie, I'm because you brought that up, I want to turn it over to you. What's the environment like? And let's delve into it from there.
Sounds good. Let's start with the AI one, even though that was the last topic in the chronology. I think it's the most interesting. So, what we're seeing, and my new role, by the way, I'm not sure if I've done an episode since I changed roles, but I am a security architect at Computer Center, which is a UK-based global reseller. So, really cool company. Basically, the same role I was doing before, but for a much larger firm. And so my exposure to these topics has really increased nationally. That's my role. I cover the national. And so what I'm seeing is companies are kind of going down two paths. And usually I'm seeing them go down one of two paths. I'm not seeing too many people go down both, but people are either trying to figure out how to consume AI internally, like how do we enable our employees with off-the-shelf AI, whether it's OpenAI, Gemini, whatever it may be, or people are trying to create models either to deliver a service to their employees or to their customers. But the first one is more interesting to me and more prevalent, I think. And ironically, building LLMs sounds more interesting at face value. But I think seeing organizations try to enable AI has been interesting because to me, we stepped in a time machine and we went back to big data principles where there's all this data that we put it into a big data lake. How do we enable proper access to that data is a lot of what the big data push was about, basically democratizing data for all of these big use cases. In AI, it's the same thing, except we have a chat prompt. And so now we're not actually seeking out this data or searching through it. A chat prompt is going to go do that on our behalf. So if your controls and your tagging and sensitivity for documents isn't clear, you're going to have problems very quickly.
Ooh, explain that a little bit because you're talking. I'm not your FedRAMP kind of guy. I came into this through Eric, but explain that for those that might not
Sure.
quite understand that.
Sure. Let's standard organization uses Microsoft Office 365 and everyone uses Share or a lot of people use SharePoint. And so everyone has SharePoint documents, whether they're private contracts with customers, whether it's PII data and data about our employees. And basically all this data is aggregated in SharePoint. And by enabling Copilot, you're basically saying, hey, go into SharePoint and access files on behalf of these employees' questions. And so to me, if you don't have good understanding of where your documentation is or the sensitivity it represents, you're really enabling a chat prompt to deliver up documents people shouldn't have access to.
Oh
And
my
so we've made
goodness.
the problem, I'm not going to say we've made the problem worse, but it's easier for problems to occur now with chatbots involved.
Wow.
So, Bertie, this is super interesting because this also falls along regular data propagation. So if I have something that maybe a customer or a partner has an NDA for, and I send that to them, of course, they are not allowed to send it by legal terms of the NDA. But it's almost in my mind, I'm trying to think about this. If you have access within that, like SharePoint, and for instance, and it goes and grabs something, but it brings it back, maybe possibly the Copilot might have more access and it pulls things, and then you're realistically through proxy of that of Copilot, you're grabbing more things than you should have access to. Is that correct? And then possibly once you get that material, you're then also maybe sharing it, just saying, well, I just did a search and retrieved this. And so really there's where more access, you've got over access where it wasn't intended on being. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And basically the chatbot Copilot is supposed to, or any chatbot for that matter in this circumstance, should follow the access rules in ADFS or whatever it is you may have that's your identity provider. But if you don't have proper labeling of your documents, I can say, don't give Eric access to PII documentation. But if we don't have those labeled, how does it know? The tool has no idea. And so this is data loss prevention, or what they talk about it now, like DSPM, data security posture management. That's where these tools really come into play because they can scan heterogeneous environments, cloud, on-premise, whatever, and they look at this documentation using natural language processing and say, I can infer this is a customer contract or something like that. Where DLP rules, regular expressions, can't do that oftentimes, or they'll miss something. So
So
think of it this way, Maurice, like DLP, data loss prevention, it will look for 3 numbers, dash 2 numbers, dash 4 numbers, because those are socials. That could be a student ID at a college. That could be a lot of things. So there's a lot of false positives and things that come with DLP. Using natural language processing increases efficacy, much higher fidelity discovery across all these documents.
So
Wow.
to follow up on that, is that one of the jobs that Microsoft Purview does in order to ensure the tagging, or is there a responsibility from the security personnel to make sure the configurations are correct so that it is in fact doing that and tagging it so that only those that have access should have access?
That is absolutely how things are supposed to be. 99% of the time, if I'm asking a customer, how's Microsoft Purview going? There's a chuckle.
Hmm.
And they basically say, I really want to use it, but I can't. The problem they're having is basically identifying all their documents for Purview to make a decision on. And so Purview uses something called Microsoft Information Protection Tags, MIP tags. And you can manually apply those across your enterprise if you like. It would take it's just not feasible. You shouldn't do that. Using tools that can scan and help you understand where documents are and what their sensitivity is, then teams go in, they agree, they apply tags. At that point, Purview can enforce,
Hmm.
and or a chatbot will have an understanding of what it can or can't serve up to an employee.
It sounds a lot like data labeling back long ago, even a lot of manual data labeling where you would have a template, it might be confidential or private or internal. And so you would have those templates that would have those on the headers and footers, but you would know as the business person what type of data that fell into. And then therefore there were categorizations where there were certain access controls based on that. It's almost very similar, I guess, to where you've got to have that configuration that somebody's got to be able to do that. Like you said, you're hearing people chuckle saying, no, we haven't possibly done that. So really, there's a lot of things that have to be done for it to work correctly.
Totally. And this isn't any, I mean, this is an age-old problem to me. A lot of people that try to create a data governance program or DLP program, what have you, they can pretty easily understand what their documentation standards should be, what their categories should be. They can even start labeling newly created documents. It's when you look at the last 7 or 10 years or whatever it is, and how do you go backwards and basically label those documents? That's the challenge.
Yeah, I
What's
think
freaking
Maurice,
me
you had a
out here
question about
is
that before. You
oh, go
said you were
ahead.
talking about this before. I remember you said, how does a person go back in time and be able to do that? I think you asked the question before, can you have AI just do that for you? I recall you asking about that. Is that where you were going with this, Maurice? Sorry. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no. So Eric, not Eric, Bertie, the one thing that's freaking me out here is when I put anything on ChatGPT, and again, remember, I'm not from your space, so this is freaking me out, man. As far as I put it in, it pulls it out from someone. Does that mean everything that I put out there is going to be utilized and maybe it shouldn't be utilized? And it's when you were talking about big data, there it sounded like it was still the wild, wild west, and there were parameters around that. So I wanted to get your take on this, and I don't want to take away from what Eric was saying, but how then do we control it in the way so it's not the wild, wild west, because there's dangers in that. But then on the opposite side of that, how do we make it so it's not overly controlled, like a big
Yeah.
brotherish type of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, great question. And there's kind of a couple questions in there, and I'm going to try to like break them out.
Sure.
So, Chat GPT wise, um, when I create GPTs, sometimes you can do that within ChatGPT, create your own little ones. And there is a checkbox in there that asks you, are you okay with us using your data and your and responses towards our model? So there is an opt out in there,
Oh,
or opt in. I can't remember which one it standardizes to, but you can choose whether you want your data included in their modeling. And so
right.
that I would say that's generally consistent across the models is you have to opt in or opt out for that. So those are the public models. A lot of what we're talking about with SharePoint, Copilot, and all of that, those are private. And so that is using the Copilot LLM, but that is within just the customer's environment. And so
Right.
it's not going to be reaching out. It's basically an intelligent search engine for your Office 365 tenant. And so kind of two different engagements with AI there.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember your last question. So how do we control this or get our arms around it? There are new tools out. So Splix AI is an example of one. Our mutually good friend Sandy Dunn just joined there. Today's her first day, actually. Uh, but they do AI red teaming. And so think of that like I'm going to throw a bunch of potential attacks at this model in an automated fashion, and I'm going to determine its score. And that will determine whether we as an organization can use this model for certain purposes. And
Mhm.
so if you do that across, let's say, 5 or 6 chosen models, you're constantly knowing which one is appropriate for your use cases now. And in that world, you can change them out. So you watch, every week somebody just trumps somebody else's LLM or something, like everyone outpaces each other, they're leapfrogging. And that's going to keep happening for a while. And so if you have a tool that can objectively analyze all of these for your use cases, that's what matters to me.
Man, that is some amazing information just because I don't know what I don't know. And just to know there's folks like you, it's blowing my mind the wealth of knowledge that you folks bring to this. And I think everyone would benefit from hearing this because I think that, well, I don't think I know there's a lot of people that wonder the same thing when we talk about GPTs and such. So, oh man,
Yeah.
thank you for answering that question.
Of course. Yeah, it's a fun topic and it's very prevalent. Everyone's trying to figure out how to maximize AI and quoting Sandy Dunn again, choosing not to engage in AI is a threat because I'm going to make kind of a crass comparison, but it's like not doing steroids in baseball. Good luck, like
So, Bertie, you were talking about also the part on consuming AIs, and that's pretty interesting because I want to hear your take on that is a big part that we're like diving a little bit deeper into that. What are some of the concerns with consuming AI built content?
yeah, some of the ones you hear about is like prompt injection and things like that, or LLM poisoning. And so there have been cases of these things. I don't know how prevalent they are, so I don't want to make them sound like they're all the time. But imagine an LLM where basically me and my colleagues, you two, let's say, we've given it enough data, basically seeding false web pages into the LLM. So if people want to install some plugin, it has a fake GitHub or a real GitHub page that I've made with malware on it. And so in that circumstance, the LLM could start recommending malicious software to people. So that's one. Now that's hard to do. Um, the hallucinations are also one where I would say that's not like an intentional threat, but if you start trusting LLMs and you're not validating the information, you're propagating false information. And you're continuing to propagate false information. So I do have a fear that we're going to hallucinate our way all the way to the movie Idiocracy, that if we're not careful. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of rambling there, but
Wow.
those are of the threats.
Yeah, so it's interesting. What are some of the counters on this if you're poisoning LLMs? I guess I would assume that within LLMs themselves, there's some checking, some almost like error checking or something like that, some fact finding that goes on. Is that correct?
Yeah. Defense in depth. I think there is some of that going on, but also if you're getting a URL served up to you in a chat prompt, we should have web proxying. We should be
Mm.
sandboxing a URL you're trying to go to. And so there's all that stuff as well. I'm seeing a lot of tools like Wiz Code is a new tool they have too. That looks over your GitHub and shared software repositories. And so I also think it's important to have visibility to a knowledge of your repositories, that you're not serving up false repositories. That's tough to track, but I think
Interesting.
but just having all of these together, it's a defense in depth answer, which it generally is, isn't
It's
it?
interesting. It almost sounds like an artifactory type of thing where it's saying, here's approved things and within your repository. So something, another extension onto that. That's very interesting. I'll have to
Exactly.
check that
I
out.
gotta
That's
ask you though, what is thera checking? That that was such a great word. Thera checking is you were mentioning, maybe I
I
missed
think it was error checking. I don't
error
know. Yeah.
checking.
It's just,
Okay,
Yeah,
never
yeah.
mind. I thought it was
yeah,
thera checking. Ah,
kind of like
I was
decline
like,
community.
that
Or
question.
I'm out of date on that one. I haven't heard of that one.
that's a new one. We could make it up. That would be good.
Hey, maybe that's
Let's do
something
it.
we could create and put it out there.
Awesome.
Uh, so that is a pretty big one. So as of right now, the two vendors that we're working with often are Concentric AI is somebody we're trying to work with. That's the data security posture management, how to look across an entire company's estate and identify all their documentation, help them categorize and tag it. Then you can actually start a lot of these data governance programs. And then looking at AI red teaming tools like a Splix AI, where we can analyze and basically try to formalize AI consumption instead of having it be like shadow SaaS, kind of the what CASB helps solve. Let's bring out these LLMs. Let's encourage our employees to use them in the right way. That's a lot of how the SaaS applications work too for CISOs.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is security governance too, where it's part of your risk management team where you're looking at the sprawl of where everything is and then accounting for it and making sure, of course, things like shadow IT or shadow procurement doesn't exist. And then you've got a record of all of those and that you're accounting for it and you've got security controls around them. So I guess that's the feature of what Concentric does and some of these others. And then you're managing them from your CISO team. And so you're understanding, okay, what's the risk on each of these? You can report that back. So that's excellent.
Totally.
Are you seeing a lot of organizations doing this currently?
Evaluating, I would
Mhm.
say. A lot of companies are, it kind of took time for organization. I'm making my assumption here, but it took time for organizations to allocate budget and create priorities around AI. But I think those times are now. And so a lot of people in VP positions or CISO positions are being asked to pursue ways to leverage AI. Both, I mean, there's ways to increase your security efficacy with AI. There's a way to enable your junior analysts with tools like Purple AI, which is in SentinelOne's dashboard. That helps junior analysts be senior analysts, augmenting their capabilities. So there's a lot of ways, I think, to consume AI. We look at it in the plain Jane fashion of Chat GPT. That's one way. There's so many ways. And I think people are evaluating that now.
Yeah, certainly. And we've seen as it has evolved with both machine learning and AI within security operations centers and alerting and different things like that. So now we're just bringing it to the next level.
Totally.
Very very good.
That to me, like a lot of people talk about the next generation SOC and stuff like that, and there are really cool tools out there. Like to me, SOAR and hyperautomation, I can't tell the dang difference, but I do think there is a way to take this huge population of people who want to get into cybersecurity and to up level them quickly. I mean, learning how these tools work, like Purple AI is my favorite one because you basically put in complex queries in natural language. Here's what I want to find out. It not only does it for you, but it shows you the query. So you don't become necessarily dependent because you're learning along the way. Eventually, you might be typing your own dang queries. You don't even need the tool. But I just think that's a really cool way to augment the capabilities of a very excited generation to get into the space. And they also, that generation has a high amount of imposter syndrome. And so having tools like AI to me really helps them feel more confident to be as smart as they actually are.
Very good.
That's it. That's a great point. Very
Yeah,
great
Maurice,
point.
you could almost use this in an organizational, not only information security, but also maybe even awareness of risk within the executive department. That's your realm of expertise.
Well, I
And
mean,
really you could
you
take some of
take a
that
look at it.
and
What's
bring
the
it into
risk of
there.
succession planning? What if we don't have a successor that's ready to play? What if we are merging with another organization? What if the culture's not in place? What if I mean, there's so many what ifs, right? And what if this new program we just launched, all of a sudden it hits a cultural barrier in another country. There's so many things that could come about here. And the nice thing about what you folks are doing right here is you're making it more for me as a consumer, much more understanding of what that could be applied to instead of tech talk. And the
Yeah.
tech talk to me has always intimidated me just because I'm not a tech guy. But when you're explaining it like this, and Bertie, to what you said about the imposter syndrome, that I've seen it in mental health. There's a lot of work that I've done in mental health, and there's so many avenues that these tools can utilize to be able to do those type of things. Matter of fact, there was a recent study because I do a lot in the side of mental health that asked, would you what was more effective, going to a clinic or talking with AI? And that study showed that AI, to your point,
Wow.
was much more feasible because it removed the stigma. Makes sense.
Mm.
So there's
Yeah.
all kinds of other avenues we could go down here, and making a true impact in lives that we weren't able to do prior to this interaction with the current AI platforms. It was easy to type in Google and then we could read stuff. But man, this interaction stuff is a whole new level.
Well,
And
Maurice,
to
one
me,
thing oh, go ahead, Bertie, and then I'll
Uh,
follow up.
just this last thought on that, Maurice, to me, like between AI and clinic, what I
Yep.
really love is if AI encouraged people to go to the clinic. I wish it was a blending of the two
Yep.
instead of the polar,
Yep. No, it is there is actually blend. There's all kinds of things that are happening out there that do blend the two because they see the value of it. What I'm seeing is incredibly important is instead of seeing like professionals such as yourself as a threat, seeing as partnerships. And if those partnerships could come together, I mean, we've talked about this in prior conversations, how CISOs are looked at the Department of No. And no one wants to go over there because that understanding that they might get that answer. But in fact, if there was a true blending, as you say, there is quite a bit of power in that. It's just coming to the table and understanding and having that dialogue instead of these awful assumptions, is what I'm saying. And again, I'm getting way up into the human side of it, but
Yeah,
that's what I've seen, uh, how underutilization of things that are going out there has come because of that.
Well, and
that's
also the Department of No, instead of having the Department of No more have the response of why because of risk and then alternative paths. Because a lot of times when people hit the Department of No, it's a stopping point, and then there could be something important business wise that they really need to accomplish. And so you can get more of the why based on risk, and then there could be an alternative path that could have some other controls in place to be able to still get that business objective done.
Yeah,
And yeah, go
well,
ahead.
Bertie was about to say something too.
I had a compliment I was just holding on to. Eric, that's why people like you are different. That's why people like Sean Marion are different, is you are incredibly brilliant CISOs, but you understand the business and you help drive the business. If your answer is no, you'll have, here's two or three other ideas. Do these help us? Like it should be collaborative. You know what I mean? And I think you and people like Sean Marion do that really well.
Thanks,
And
Bertie.
it's
I owe
not
you some
as
more
common.
Starbucks cards too.
I appreciate it, man.
So
Man,
just one real quick thing too that Maurice said that was really important. And I think, Maurice, you have so much organizational knowledge, you don't realize it. But one thing that you said was succession planning. And also you mentioned within that how some organizations can almost, be ahead of others. And I think of mergers and acquisitions. And when you are doing due diligence for a merger acquisition, you're looking at how well the company is taking care of their IT systems and security. And so if you have these departments that are really leveraging the best out of AI that they should, they're more mature than the other ones. And you can take a lot of those best practices, even from a smaller company into a bigger company, or you can also relay the risk that you're seeing from that smaller company and saying, yeah, these guys got their stuff together. and they're doing it right. And so I think that that's very important on having things like succession planning, having backup personnel, but also that they're able to have the technology to do the job the best that they can, the most effective that they can, that they're covering risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Man, this is a rich conversation. I mean, any of the things that we've talked about could be a topic unto itself. And I mean, investment attention, because we were originally talking about some network segmentation, account management, but this AI thing is amazing. Uh, I love I love how it's helped me in my own life professionally and so on and so forth. But just to understand that there's a cadre of people such as yourselves out there to help make it better and to help protect us is quite a big deal. And I hope the audience appreciates that. And I'm not just saying that to pull it out of the air or something. I really sincerely mean that. We need that as we move this forward because to your point, Bertie, I've never seen so many people trying to make AI. It has definitely become a red ocean versus the blue ocean, right?
Yeah, it is. I just saw an influencer on LinkedIn this morning, Lauren Vrenz. I might be pronouncing her name wrong, but she was saying how VCs are investing in firms that have no deck, no business plan, and no product. They're putting billions of dollars
Wow.
behind just people,
It,
basically people who
it,
have ideas.
it reminds me of that website. You remember a long time ago, there was that commercial that goes, "Oh, you have a website? Oh, sure. Here's all the money you need."
Where do they sign up?
Yeah, that's it. You have AI? Oh, here you go. It's all good to go.
So it started as a website, and then there was you got to have an app. Remember the
Yeah.
app era where
Yeah.
everyone had to have an app? Yeah. Now we've moved on. What are you doing with AI? Do you have a chat bot? That's the
Wild
next one.
West. That's good.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is a great conversation. And I'll tell you what, Bertie, we definitely need to make sure that we stay consistent with this because you bring such a wealth of knowledge to the audience. And it seems like you're learning something every day. And when you share it, I get pumped because you do it in such a way that is easy to consume and it gives a number of other pivots that we all need to consider. So thank you for making the time today.
Yep.
That's a huge compliment to me when people tell me that I help make this any topic simple. I've kind of subscribed to an Albert Einstein quote for a long time, and I probably have said it on the show before, but if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough to me.
I like it.
Like if somebody's not understanding something, it's not on them. They're not stupid. I need to find a way to communicate said topic. So thank you. That's a big compliment to me. Something I work hard on.
Bertie is the boots on the ground and a great communicator.
Thank
Perfect
you.
combination.
I agree. And so until next time, let's keep on learning and continue to share. Thanks, Bertie.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
gentlemen. See you soon.
See ya.